How y'all doing? Listen, when you join in the chat, let us know where you're from. I'm just dropping down our pinned comment for this session that we're going to be having with the infamous, the famous, the magnificent Octavius Terry. Okay. So you guys get ready for what I know will be another. We're just waiting on Octavius to join us. We got some things to cover tonight, so I hope you guys are excited. I hope you're ready. The man of the hour.
What's up, cuzzo?
What's
happening?
Nothing much, just quarantining.
Okay. Yeah. When they asked me to do this and I found out you were going to be interviewed, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. Yeah.
How you been?
I've been so good, man. Atlanta's been really good for me. Being back here, this is where I was born and raised. I spent like almost 13 years out in LA, and I didn't know how anxious I was in LA until I got here, where it's just like, mom's here, my brother's here, family's here, elementary school friends, stuff like that. So it's just good being back.
Anxious in LA. I think I want to start us off there, okay? Just so you guys know, whoever is joining in the chat, when you step into the house, you let us know where you from.
What's up, Eddie?
We are both from the country. So we like to know where y'all coming from,
yes.
Okay? All right, so we're going to go into your background in a bit, but you said something I thought was very interesting. You said anxious in LA.
Yeah.
Anxious in LA. So I want you to remember that. And we're going to come back to that.
Because you know what that feels like.
I know what it feels like.
Gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I know exactly what it feels like. So we're going to talk a lot of fashion. We're going to talk a little relationship stuff.
Let's go.
But I want to start off with your background.
Okay.
You are a track guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Growing up in Atlanta, how did you sort of find your way into fashion?
Ooh, you know what? The funny thing about it, fashion wasn't even a part of my DNA before I left Atlanta. And now that I'm back, that's what I mean. It's interesting coming back after all these years. I'll be celebrating my 48th birthday in November. But before I left to go, I know, right? Before I left to go to LA, I wasn't even thinking about fashion design. So the funny thing about that is, so just some of my story, and I think some of my students are the fashion chair at the Art Institute of Atlanta now, and that's kind of what brought me back. But anyway, I was born and raised, and I talked about this last time, in Carver Homes. So people call it Carver Homes, but I was born in the projects here in Atlanta, and for me growing up, one of the things that my mom and dad always instilled in me, because I was the first person to graduate from college, is you're going to college, right? So as a young kid, I was drawing, I was doing all these creative things. But as you know, like when you are, if you're a son of someone who's a truck driver, which was my dad, and my mom was a nurse's assistant who both never went to college. When they see you drawing and stuff, and you're from the South, and this is pre-internet and everything like that, they automatically say, oh, he's going to be a doctor or a lawyer. You know what I mean? So it's like, so they just equated talent with just being able to excel, right? And so for so long, I kind of sat in those shadows, and I was a creative kid. And what a lot of people don't know is that my mom, because I was a kid that was always interested in so many things, like I was playing chess at like 3 years old. It's the crazy stuff. But they put me in music, and so I started playing saxophone, and I was in a marching band, and I just went on and was doing all these creative things. But again, they thought I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer. But I say all this because I think it contributed to me being the designer that I am now. But when I started doing this stuff, I ended up just wanting to fit in, and we can get to that story a little bit later too. I'm 6'3". A lot of people think when they see me on social media, I'm a small guy, but I'm 6'3". But believe it or not, I've been 6'3" since I was 12 years old, right? So when you're 6'3" and 12 years old, living in Atlanta, living in the South, being this little androgynous looking kid, people always picked at me And I was like, I just need to play sports somehow. You know what I mean? So I tried basketball. I sucked at basketball. I mean, I could dunk, but I hated it. But then I started always thinking about running track because I was a skinny guy too. I was like, maybe this will help me build my body up. But the other thing about it, when you run track, you only dependent upon yourself, right? And so I went into track, and then my first track meet, like I was dead last, and I got talked about that too. But what you'll find out, like as we continue my story, is like I always feel like, you know, your obstacles are always are disguised as a shortcut to success, because that's one of my things that I keep pinning, because at that moment I couldn't even give up and just falter to like the crabs in the bucket syndrome. But what I decided to do was I went and started watching Edwin Moses run the 400 hurdles, and everybody was scared to run the hurdles at school. And so my thing is like, I'm always attacking obstacles. So I went right into wanting to do the hurdles because nobody else wanted to do it. To make a long story short, I wasn't highly recruited in high school, but what I will tell you is that between my junior and senior year, I went from nobody knowing who I was to being the third fastest in the United States in the hurdles. And then 1 year after that, I was ranked 7th in the world in track. And it was all from that moment of like turning that whole obstacle thing into something that I wanted to accomplish. And I did that. And I went to Georgia Tech. So shout out to Georgia Tech, the runners at Georgia Tech. I learned a lot about just discipline and endurance and like being patient under my coach Hinsdale out there, who was really my second father. And through that, the reason why I bring that up, those are the things that I started to use those philosophies for everything, including the fact that now that I'm a designer, I was a late bloomer in designing. I think I know for a fact, I was 36 when I went back to design school. I had never touched a sewing machine before in my life. You know what I mean? So that thing started to click back in where I was like, this could be an obstacle. I could turn into something else. Because even when I left my corporate job after working at Wells Fargo for 11 years, as like their youngest African-American planner there, everybody thought I was crazy. Like I left Atlanta, I lost my mind, I left my house, I was like, I'm gonna be a designer. Everybody's like, here we go again. But again, I took that obstacle and I turned it into success, and I made it a shortcut because, you know, if anybody knows what I do a lot of suiting and all that kind of stuff. But as soon as I started design school, I had a lot of naysayers saying, well, you know, there's the Tom Fords and how are you going to compete and how are you going to do all that kind of stuff. But again, not touching the sewing machine until I was 36. I ended up having a tuxedo on the Oscars with Terrell McCraney. Shout out to Fernando who got that on there. But I was just fresh out of design school, and Jimmy Kimmel said that was the best tuxedo of the night in front of all these people. So that's the short end of my story. But again, now being back in Atlanta is like my ninth life for like a cat, but now I'm developing what that is. So, and here I am now. And so now that I'm back into Atlanta, everybody knows me as a designer elsewhere, but here in Atlanta, people are like, is that you? You know, they see a different person. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit roundabout.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, now I want to know, what was that moment that you said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to design school. I'm going to learn what I need to learn. Was there a pivotal moment that you just said, you know what, I can't do this corporate thing no more?
You know, after doing a lot of research about, you know, this burning desire in me that I'm just, I wouldn't say but like I said, my mom always says that that's why she got me. She made me play the saxophone because she thought it would challenge me. I feel like every so often, and it seems to be like every 10 years, like what I'm hearing, I just, you know, they say it takes 10 years to become a master at what you do. And at that 10 mark, I'm always like unsettled because I'm like, okay, what's next for me? What is going to challenge me? And I'm always looking for that challenge. And I'm probably one of those rare people that I like living on the edge to the point where, like, even Steve Harvey mentions this, like, you know, jumping, you'll build your wings on the way up. That's just kind of my philosophy, and that's my drive. And so I always have this gut feeling of like, this is right for me. And I call it this warm, fuzzy feeling. And so as soon as I have that warm, fuzzy feeling, I throw caution at the wind, and then I'm just like, I gotta go back into that philosophy that that I learned from my coach at Georgia Tech, Coach Hinsdale. Because it takes, we would be practicing for 4 years to try to make an Olympic team. So with that, I realized that it's going to come some patience, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, a lot of missed opportunities, which some people call it mistakes, but I call it like missed opportunities that are going to happen along the way. But again, my philosophy is those obstacles are success is disguised as obstacles for me. And so I continue to do that. Like people say now, you're a designer now. I'm like, after I get maybe feeling like I'm a little tired, I may be an airline pilot or something like this after this. So who knows,
So what was that process of going to school for fashion design like? Walk me through that. And then what happened after?
Oh, say it again. What was the question again?
Can you walk me through the process of going to school for that after being in the corporate world for so long? And then what happened right after that?
Okay. And I know we'll get into this a little bit later, but my ex-husband, Jamal Sims, shout out to Jamal Sims, who's a very talented choreographer. That was one of the reasons why I went out to Los Angeles for the last 13 years. But when I got a chance to be out there, again, I talked about early on, I was this kid that literally was drawing, and I had this thing in my heart that I wanted to be a designer. But I was in banking because that's what my mom and dad wanted me to do, and they said this is what's going to be successful. And I was great at it because again, I'm an overachiever, I'm a goal setter. I just want to be the best at what I want to do. But when I got out to LA, and you'll know this, you know how this goes. I'm probably like the only person that had like a corporate job. And then I'm seeing all these creatives and I'm getting inspired. And so I immediately, within the first 6 months, I started thinking every time I would get up and put a tie on, I felt like I was going to be a warden at a jail cell. And I was like, this has to change. I'm like, I'm not happy. And, and because of, Jamal's support, Jamal had come from a family that had seen him have opportunities in the entertainment business. And they were supportive. And again, I'm 48. So back then there was no social media, what success looks like as far as entertainment and what are entertainment jobs. And so when I got out there and I lost my mind after meeting all my friends, like Jamal and Draco and all these people that were so creative, I was like, look, what do you think if I went back to, this is what it was. We were sitting around, Quincy and DeAndre are good friends of mine. They moved to Atlanta too. We were sitting around at the house, and I had a lot of my friends and creatives. And we did this thing where we were posing questions, and we were like, okay, so what's the one thing that you wish you would have done, but you feel like the opportunity is gone or you're too old to do it? So as we go around, I'm this banker, and I was like, gosh, I wish I would have, I would have been a fashion designer. Only thinking that you would have had to been doing that when you were a kid and everything like that. The next thing you know, and this is kind of my philosophy too, when you put something out, the universe conspires to start to make that happen. And I was in banking during the time that the whole banking fallout happened in 2007. My boss came to me, we can get you another job, but you might not live in LA, or after 11 years, you can take a severance package and you can consider this your startup fund. Because I know you have other, aspirations. I was like, I'll take the startup fund. So that was the thing. And I was like, gosh, I said, this has got to be a sign. And so at 36, I started doing research on the internet, like, what can I do to be a designer? And my first, and this is for all the young people and all the people that are out here watching, how I got into it. I was 36. I never touched a sewing machine before. I went to Joann's Fabrics. So shout out to Joann's Fabrics. They had a class in Los Angeles with a whole bunch of Hollywood housewives where for 1 month, I think you pay like $75, and you have 4 classes where you learn how to thread a needle, you made a pillow, you made pajamas, and you made something else. So I took that class, and I'm the only black guy in this class with all these Beverly Hills housewives. And the teacher was there, and she's this older lady, and she's like, okay, so if you guys get through all 3 of these projects, then you can use the rest of the time and we can do other things. So, the overachiever me, I did the pillow and the pajamas and everything like the first week. And so the third week, I was coming back in there like, okay, let's go. I want to learn how to make a sweatshirt. I want to make this. And so I did that. And then the next thing you know, again, with the support of Jamal was actually working with Miley Cyrus at the time. He was choreographing her first world tour. And I came back from that class and I took all these old T-shirts and I made this sweatshirt from learning how to do it at Joann's. I didn't know I was doing patterns, and it had the Beatles on it. It had all this kind of stuff. All of a sudden, I walk into rehearsal with Jamal, and Miley's like, "Oh my God, what is that you're wearing?" And then Jamal was like, "Oh, he made that, right?" So and this is another thing, like your insecurities will always get in your way, and you always feel like you're not good enough. So here I am. I done made my own sweatshirt. I didn't think it was good enough to sell or give to anybody. And I was like, oh, it's kind of a one of a kind. You know, I downplayed what that was. And that was the catalyst that made me go back to school, because I was like, I feel like I need school to validate my talent and what I'm worth before I can give it to somebody else. And I don't believe that's always the case. I think it strengthens you. But I think that's what got me into school, because it caught the eye of Miley Cyrus. It caught the eye of, I think I had a blog. My first blog was with Queen Latifah, and she was on at the time, Boss Up, with one of my jackets that I had made, right? And so that was kind of my sign that I'm heading in the right direction. But again, I'm 36. I'm going back to school with all these young people I thought were like 19 years old and fresh out of college. But I will say that even at this age that I am now, and this is my advice to other people too, I continue to be a sponge, because it's only because of those kids that were there at 19. They were the ones that were showing me about social media and like, how do you get involved and all this kind of stuff. And Octavius, you're not posting enough. You're not doing all these things. And I was like, what are you talking about? So it is the thing that has helped my brand and has driven my brand to a lot of the success. And it was all because of deciding to go back to school, because it's never too late. You know, even at 48, I feel like I want to do something and I want to take it seriously. I'll go back to school now and learn that. So that's how I got to school.
I just want to mention also too that you have some couture face coverings. We're actually going to be giving one away. So if you guys stick around until the end,
a leather one too.
I'm going to ask a question that he has given the answer to.
Oh, that's good.
At some point throughout this interview, and if you guess it, we're going to be sending that to you. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a good one too.
We're going to get.
It's a good one. It's the leather lambskin one.
That's the one I need. Okay. So I will be placing my order after we get off the phone.
I got you.
So, oh my God, there's so many directions I want to go in right now.
I know, and I can talk, and I can talk a lot. I can talk a lot. So just, tell me the stuff.
Oh, I know. I like it. So listen, talk to me about your experience in LA as a designer. What was that like in terms of, like, you're done with school at this point, so you have successfully validated, your work, okay, and now you're ready to start rocking and rolling. But I want to know about that first, and then we're going to touch on the relationship and how that plays a part in sort of your journey in LA as well.
Okay, cool. So I was fortunate enough to go to school, FIDM. Again, shout out to FIDM. And they're the ones that got me kind of my start. And Kathy Gilbert, who was the person that answered my questionnaire when I was sitting in front of the computer, like, okay, what do I do after Joann's? And I sent an email to FIDM, and they picked up, and next thing you know, I was in school there. But what happens at FIDM, they have a great opportunity that while you're in school, if you've already have a college degree, and I had a college degree from Georgia Tech, you can go back in and you only have to take your design class. I was like, that's perfect. So I ended up meeting some of my great friends, like Kelly Hong, who's my dentist, who was my age, that went back to school, but she's like one of the best dentists in LA, and I didn't know that. And Braden McDonald, who was actually a student at Juilliard, and we all sat together when we came to our orientation, but he went on to be one of the finalists on Project Runway. So when I went back to school, there was a program called the Debut Program at FIDM. And if you were lucky enough, you would take all the stuff that you were learning in school and you would apply to be one of the 10 chosen students for the next year to come back to show your collection to the entire world. They would help launch your career. So they only had like at the time, one full scholarship, and it was called the Bob Mackie Scholarship. So after I finished my program, and I got my first degree in fashion design, and this 37 years old. And like I said, again, shout out to Jamal for supporting me during all this time. I had to decide the next year if I did qualify for it, would I go back to school and how I was going to pay for it. If I did, that meant that I would be out of work again, trying to do this hustle. And next thing you know, I applied, and again, I'm just excited about like just keep pushing the envelope. I was actually the winner of the Bob Mackie Scholarship, so I had a full scholarship to come back to present my collection to the world. And it was one night in 2013, and it was in front of 3,000 people. And that first collection off the runway got picked up. I had a billboard in Times Square with Chris Brown. I had with Ariana Grande, I had some looks for her when her first album came out. Mary J. Blige used one of my tuxedos in her merch when she was touring with Sam Smith. Tamar Braxton brought me on her show from seeing me on the runway. Shout out to Tamar. I was on her show, and then the list goes on and on. It was Nick Cannon and all these people from my school show. And so that's kind of what launched my career. And I started going under the alias of Octavius Marcion, which is my first and middle name. And at that point, I started doing like celebrity stuff. And Gloria Govan, found out about me. I started working with her. And I just started developing a name for myself through that avenue, even before the Grammy stuff. And then that was exciting. And FITM had a great part and a great deal in, cultivating me. Shout out to Mr. V for doing that. He was the Tim Gunn for the school, and I still keep in touch with him. But those disciplines between track and what I learned at FITM, they all play into who I am today as a person, as a designer. So it's a really cool situation.
And that's kind of why I love to touch on how people get to where they get to, because I feel like it does play an integral part. And then a lot of times those relationships that you make along the way are what really catapult you to the next level. Was there anybody that you would credit as like, you know what, that you wouldn't have expected it, but they really stuck their neck out for you, like that will always stay in your brain?
Who that really stuck their neck out for me? Oh my God, for the brand? Oh my gosh. So and
I'm sure it's tons of people.
Yeah, it's tons of people, but one that stands out the most was who was one of my good friends now, Fernando Fern. They call him Fern now. Right when I had done a lot of work, a lot of celebrity work. We launched our collection in 2014. We did all the white suits. We were trying to be the Vera Wang of men's suiting, not knowing what that was going to be. Because right after that is when it all went down, because we had spent all the money to get the company up. We maxed out our credit cards. We did all this stuff, right? We didn't even have. I remember being in New York and staying with my friend Dewan, because at that point we couldn't even stay in a hotel, so people didn't even know these stories. Because I'm like, we don't have any money. But right after that, there are two instances. The first one was when we really got our big jump was when I got a call from a friend, Daryl. Shout out to Daryl, who's a wedding planner. And he'd asked me, would I come on to do Ray J's wedding for Love and Hip Hop. I was kind of skeptical, and he made the call to me, and he was like, okay, so Ray J wants to talk to you, but I'm telling you right now, like he's all over the place, and nobody can really nail him down about what he wants. He wants this and that kind of thing, and we just can't get anybody that can really figure out what he wants and what he needs. So the honest truth about what we're gonna do, and I will say that out of all the people to begin my career on that level, I didn't know the magnitude of what Ray J had done for me. And, he may play something on television, but when I say he knows his business, he trusted me. And the fact that he trusted me, he brung me into his world and allowed me to do, wanted to do, and what I needed to do for him to, for he and Princess, shout out to Princess, to give him the best wedding on television. And through him, I met the game, and the game was so extremely nice. And again, my insecurities started to kick in the day that we had to do the show, but they all made me feel comfortable. And I remember thinking that it could be the end of my career because I had to fit the game in the singing booth like 3 a.m. before the wedding. And I had one shot to get his suit together right. And he was so happy to wear it. But that day, I remember I had tailored it too tight, and then his buttons were popping off before the show. And I literally had to sew his buttons. And do you know, I was so nervous that I couldn't thread the needle. And the game is the game is 6'5". I'm 6'3". Do you know that brother threaded my needle for me because he wanted me to have the best showing that I could as a black male designer. He was like, I got you, Ock. I got you, Ock. Like, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So that was one that stuck out to me the most. And the second one was Terrell McCraney for when he got the Oscar for Moonlight. My friend Fern, who's now my friend, he reached out to me, didn't know me from Adam, but Terrell McCraney wanted to wear a white suit, and he saw our campaign. And all this has happened within the first 4 months after we launched it. And he said, hey, you know, I don't know if you have anything that can fit Terrell McCraney, but, you know, he's 6'5". I'm like, yeah, I got, you know, all my guys on the show are 6'5". I got you. He said, well, I'm just going to let you know now you're up against Dior and Calvin Klein, but we'll come in and, you know, we'll see what you have. Literally, I hadn't met Terrell or I hadn't met Fernando before. Fernando came in before Terrell came in, and he was like, oh, I like it. We'll see what Terrell says. Terrell McCraney walked into my studio, which was downtown LA. He saw the suit. I had Christopher J. Heller, who was my bow tie guy. We were just, we were frantic, but we were like, okay, either he's going to like it or not. That brother came in that year, and he put the tuxedo on, and he looked at Fernando. At that moment, he said, this is what I'm wearing to the Oscars. And my mouth dropped. I'm like, okay, this is cool. But the Oscars were the next day. And to make a long story short, that's what catapulted our career too. I'm sitting at home thinking that, you know, it'll just be good to have a shot of my tuxedo on the red carpet, you know. So I got that, and it started escalating. And then I think his category, he was up against Denzel Washington and a couple other people. And I'm literally sitting in the house, and I'm tired. I'm working on another project. And they make the announcement that he won the Oscar. He went up there and he had a whole speech dedicated to his mom in my tuxedo. And when he walked away, like I said, Jimmy Kimmel said, I think that was the best tuxedo of the night. Then all of a sudden my phone just started ringing and everything like that. I'm yelling in the condo. I'm like, man, I wish I had on a suit. I need to be downtown. I need to, you know, but I didn't think. But those two moments with the brand are the things that stood out the most because I just had no idea what you could accomplish by following your gut and following your dreams. And, you know, a little project boy out of Atlanta, being able to do that stuff. And after everybody always tries to put their insecurities and their fears onto you, and you learning how to deflect that and continue to do what you need to do.
And I want to touch on what inspires your design aesthetic, because I feel like you have very specific taste. So I want to know where that comes from, if it's inspired by anything or anybody, or how you come up with those concepts.
Okay. So like what I was saying, that's why I told a story about me working in a bank and running track professionally and all these things. And I feel like all of those things are potpourri of who I am as a person. And I didn't realize that I was beginning to build a brand around that guy who wanted to be, you know, if they wanted to be, and, you know, the LA lifestyle kind of creates that too. And I'm sure in New York where you may be out for a while because you're in traffic in LA or you're in Brooklyn, you can't really get downtown. So what does that look like for a guy who is, who's in corporate, but still likes to do happy hour and still likes to do these things, but still likes to look nice. So I started developing this thing called like alternative red carpet at the beginning when the brand was made, where it was like suiting that you could actually wear your Jordans afterwards. Like after a wedding, you can put on your Jordan if you wanted to. And it just started being like a lifestyle brand that was a hybrid of all my former careers. As a banker, I love suiting. If you've ever, all the guys that have ever worn suits, when you put on a suit, it actually makes you feel like Superman, you know what I mean? So I wanted to continue to make guys feel like they have on an armor to go, and especially like African-American men, to go out with armor that was visually supportive by every ethnic background. Like when they see you, that it was undeniable that you had confidence and you were, you know, like I talk about in my video about being bold and authentic and inspiring. A lot of that stuff is done within the first 5 minutes of seeing someone, like how confident they are and how brave they are. A lot of that comes from what they wear. And so I wanted to take on that responsibility of being somebody that has a little bit of that to offer to the world.
You talked a lot about your relationship. I would like to know how the whole wedding and the Grammys came about.
Ooh.
Like, how did that happen?
Okay, so yeah, so this is good. Okay, so this is the first time that I guess we've publicly spoken about this. So, so at the time, so Jamal and I were together for almost 13 years. So that, which is a lifetime for a lot of people in general. But we entered the relationship and we both were creative people at one point. And so for us during that time period, we got a lot of notoriety about what we did individually. Some call it different things, but we just called it something that we kept supporting each other in our aspirations as we continued to climb the ladder in everything that we did. And we got approached, I think, by an agency that had realized during the time that the Marriage Equality Act had overturned in California. I think we were already signed, but it wasn't legal to get married in Los Angeles. And so we knew that when it was legal in Los Angeles, we would finally do it. We didn't want to, I think it started, whenever it started first, we didn't want to have to fly somewhere and get married and come back and it not be recognized. So we waited. Right. And then when it got overturned, we got reached out by a talent agency like, hey, you know, you guys could really represent African-American males that has never been seen before yet. You know, we have an opportunity for you, but you have to sign an NDA before you do it. And we're like, what does this mean? Like, you know how that goes. I'm like, you can't tell us nothing and we have to decide. So I remember specifically, we had gotten into the car to go to Twitch and Alice's wedding. Twitch from So You Think You Can Dance and, you know, an Ellen show. We were friends with them and we were going to his wedding at Nigel Lithgow's winery. So I always have to say that because that's a part of the decision-making process for me, what happened. So we get there. So we signed the NDA. They call us and say, hey, you guys need to sign the NDA so we can kind of tell you because, you know, this is very important. So we're literally on the way out of the house. We're like, let's just sign the NDA. And we had like a 2-hour ride to Twitch and Allison's wedding. So it's already wedding and everything. So we signed the NDA and then we're driving and then they give us a call. And it's like, okay, hey, we're glad you guys signed the NDA. How would you guys like to get married on the Grammys? And we looked at each other. We were like, what? What do you mean? They were like, well, we can't tell you a lot of specifics, but we're going to, because there's going to be something where there's going to be a mass wedding. We just need you guys to sign on because we think you guys would be very representative of what we're trying to do. And two of your other friends, shout out to Quincy DeAndre, there are other African-American males that got married on the Grammys. But we can't tell you a lot of information. So just, you know, do you want to do it? And we're like, let us think about it, and then we'll get back with you. It's like, well, hurry up because, you know, it's filling up fast. So we're on the phone. We call Quincy DeAndre, like, what do you guys think? Like, this is a lot of putting our life out there. Even though we were comfortable, our family was comfortable, it was a lot of responsibility So there's a lot of responsibility that happened. So we were driving, and then all of a sudden, start talking about the pros and cons. We're like, gosh, we could save a lot of lives. Let's figure this out. And by the time we get to Twitch and Allison's wedding, love is in the air, and there's wine, and then I think even at the table there's more wine on the way back. I was like, let's just do it, let's do it. And we called him back. Well, I had already had a couple bottles of wine, I guess, and we signed on. And we got married in January 26th of 2014. I think it was right after Christmas. We signed on and didn't know what was going to happen, but we didn't know that it was going to be that big of a thing. We didn't even know if we were going to be seen. And then to have our friend Queen Latifah to do the ceremony, she was signed an NDA, and we didn't see her until rehearsal, and all these things, just magic just started happening. And then I had actually tuxedos. Those are the tuxedos that actually launched our company, Groom, at the time. So we decided that we wanted to be the pioneers of wedding tuxedos for same-sex weddings, all kinds of weddings, but we want to be responsible for the guys' side of weddings. And that's how we even did Ray J's, Princess was like, Ray J, you're not gonna mess up my wedding. Like, you need to call Octavius, So that's what kind of got us started. But we did the wedding, and it was one of the most amazing experiences. It wasn't what I thought, like growing up and not being comfortable about my sexuality for so long, and not knowing that there was power in authenticity for me. And that moment changed my life forever. It allowed me to be 100% myself, and I think that's what's opened up even more doors now. So I feel like now in my life, even though I'm 48, I feel like I started my life all over during that time, and being just excited about all the things that I thought were going to be negative things are all positive and like door openers for what I'm doing.
And you guys both have been pretty open about, your relationship following that. And I know you mentioned the word responsibility. Did you feel a sense of responsibility kind of as you guys maneuvered through, not only your relationship, but marriage, and also, you running this company?
Oh my God, this is the first. I'm so glad you asked it that way. So, what happened was, we officially, and this is the first time I guess we are talking about it publicly, but it was in December when we decided to let the world know what we were doing, and we decided to do. Most people say we're going to do divorce, but we did what was called a conscious uncoupling. And Jamal and I are still the best of friends, but we realized that, one of the things that we did when we got married on the Grammys, as far as, like you said, a responsibility, that night, I think we saved so many lives. I got so many direct messages from parents. My intern's parents called about their son that wasn't even my intern, and how that opened the doors for them to have a conversation. And we started opening the conversation doors for so many people that we vowed that once we did that, that we would decide to continue to have a public life about what we were doing with our lives. And so it almost became like a reality show. We would post a lot about what we're doing together, what we're doing separately. And so for us, it began to be a responsibility that we felt like, okay, let's just post. But again, like, social media is, you post your highlight reel. And I think for us, we started to realize that that love that we had started to grow into a brotherhood. And I think, Jamal will he's getting ready to be 50. I'm getting ready to be 48. We came to a conscious decision about 2 years ago when I decided to take this job in Atlanta to lead the fashion program at the Art Institute and be back with my family. That something was happening at that point. But I think that our responsibility is, we started out being public with our marriage. We need to be public about what we were going through. And it's not bad. I think that even with my mom and other people and probably Jamal's parents. I think the older generation has an issue, or they feel like divorce is such a final thing or it should be a bad thing. But we realized that the work that we had done as a couple had been done. And now there's some things that we both want to do that don't have each other involved in it. And there's some things that we have to do. There's some service that we have to do separately at this point. And the best thing for us is to do the official thing, get a divorce. But we call it a conscious uncoupling because we started taking everybody else's fears and insecurities and saying, should we be mad? We're like, no, we're not mad. Like, we're happy. Like, we're excited about, like, still supporting each other. Like, for example, we just had our first fashion show, our fashion premiere show at the Art Institute of Atlanta. He flew in to direct the actual fashion show, along with Carlton Lee and Art Institute of Atlanta. And even that, I think people were like, y'all still, no, we still talk. We still have a group chat with all our friends. We're still excited. I still support him, his family, his sisters. We still call each other Sister Bear, Brother Bear. We still, that was him actually calling in. I don't know if he's on here, but we still support each other in that kind of thing. And we're both moving on, and we both are dating now, and we're meeting the people that we date. We're talking about that stuff, and we're learning through that process of, like, we were together, and, you know, we're dating. And it's funny to talk about, but when he talks about people, I'm like, now, you know, you can be this way. So it's kind of fun. It's like the friend that knows the behind the curtains thing, to be like, you can be that way sometimes, chill out, you know, and the same thing with me. So I think that, I guess my best advice for everyone out there is that divorce doesn't have to be final. I think, like everybody else, we started watching Red Table Talk, and we started seeing their books and what they were reading. And that was one of the things that came out of it, that, you know, we just need to navigate the world in a different way for now. And for me, I think I've blossomed even more now that I know more about myself as an individual, as opposed to being in the marriage. But I learned so much from him and the things that we did then. So I still think back to all the things that he's helped provide to help me be the person I am now.
I think first of all, I'm really glad that you were able to speak about it in such, I had to ask you before, are you okay with talking about it?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to surprise you. And I really wanted people to get what you guys stood for, and then what it also means to stand for the same things, even though you're not together.
Yeah.
And I think that we can all learn a lot from that, in terms of, because I know a lot of people looked at your relationship as, oh, that's it. Right. That's what it looks like for us. Because, you know, a lot of us didn't have that.
Yeah.
We didn't have that thing, or that couple to look to say, hey, you know, this is what I kind of want my life to look like.
Yeah.
But now we can also see what it could look like beyond that as well. So thank you for being open.
No, thank you for asking. We sat in the house the day that I went out to LA and said, we need to post. You know, we got so much advice from different people. Don't post about, like, no, we started this out this way, everybody know. Because the other thing about it, if we decide to date other people and that kind of thing, we didn't want that to look weird for us, you know. And I will say that very interesting. I think we just have a modern take on it, because I can say that I'm dating someone now, and the greatest opportunity when Jamal got a chance to come back down to direct our fashion show, the person I'm dating and Jamal, we all went out to dinner and had a great time and talked about, and we laughed about just crazy stuff. You know what I mean? But that, again, for us, that's a whole growth thing that's happening with us. But like the person I'm dating now, it's just like, I know Jamal will be in your life for the rest of your life, and I'm okay with that. And I'm like, I appreciate that, because we still, after 13 years, he's, like I said, it's a love that moved into a brotherhood that is just unexplainable, that we still have that line of communication, like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, I know you know me, like, what should I do? What should I do about my neighbor that's going crazy? All these different things. and I feel like I have a bonus brother now. You know what I mean? And it's just incredible. You know.
That's awesome. I want to touch on something you talked about earlier. You said something about being uncomfortable in LA.
Hmm. Anxious, anxious, anxious.
Anxious in LA.
Yeah,
That was it.
yeah.
What was making you anxious in
Well,
LA?
you know,
What could have possibly made you
well,
anxious?
I think it's just like the hustle. Like when I was a designer, I remember like even some of my vendors, because my shop was downtown LA. I went back just recently to get some fabric, and they're like, Octavius, you just seem more calm and relaxed because LA just makes you feel like you got to do it now because you're only as good as your last thing. Like, you know, oh, I did the material McCraney, I got to do this, I got to, you know, I just da 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 da. But being back here in Atlanta, I think it's I wouldn't even say a slower pace, but it's a pace that makes you start to evaluate your surroundings a lot more. Your friends, like your real friends, your family, all these different things, and what's really important. And for me, it wasn't really important are my relationships. So when I went out, I was much calmer. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm here, but I go back home. I got my mom. I got my dog. I'm chilling. You know, I have a responsibility to support all the students at the Art Institute of Atlanta who are looking for my guidance. And so that has fulfilled me in ways I could have ever imagined that have calmed me down a lot.
What went into the decision to go to the Art Institute?
Well, you know, shout out to District 3 City Councilman Antonio Brown, who's a great, great friend of mine, and he's also the owner of an apparel company. But he called me and said, you know, there's some students in Atlanta that really need your guidance. And I got on a plane not knowing what I was going to see. But the day that I went for the interview and I walked into that campus, and like I said, coming from Atlanta and being from Carver Homes and walking into a school where I saw so many young students that looked like me that just needed somebody to really validate who they are. Then I was like, oh, sorry, I think it's Peggy. I was like, I have to be here. So 2 weeks later, I packed up everything and I was back in Atlanta and I was at the school like 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. I saw so many of those students. I was like, gosh, I could, you know, be a guidance to them in so many ways.
I want to talk about something that you guys are doing with, I think it's Lost and Found Youth.
Yes, yes.
Can you talk about that real
Yeah, yeah,
quick?
yeah. So we're doing a lot of different things. So like just talking about like the face coverings that everybody supports. So thank everybody that's been supporting the movement with this because they kind of went viral. We're almost at like almost 600 masks right now in a month. It caught on that well. But what that has allowed us to do is given us visibility and given us an ability to actually purchase all these medical masks to give away to all the homeless and the needy here in Atlanta. As you know, African Americans are being struck by this coronavirus in disproportionate amounts. And Georgia is one of the states that has gone completely open. And there was an article that came out before I decided to launch the couture face coverings. There was an African American gentleman, and I just don't know his name. There was an article wrote where he had already had stigma about going into a store with a bandana around his face or just something covering. And he said, until somebody makes something that I can cover my face with to protect myself, I'd rather get the virus than to have to deal with any, you know, police brutality or anything like that, because I'm just trying to go to the store and not, you know, be seen as a criminal. And so at that moment, I couldn't sleep anymore. And I got up and I was like, you know what? I got to do this for more than one reason. And when I did it, and I call it couture face because I wanted to give people an entree into the brand at a price point where they could still be protected, but at the same time, partial proceeds would go to buy these things that I could actually donate. And it was kind of the best decision I was able to do because we did fabrics from our former collections and our current collections, and we were one of the only ones that have like these adjustable ear toggles. So I think everybody bought into that. But the response has been so overwhelming that it's filled my heart that I've been able to do Lost and Found Youth, an organization here in Atlanta the primary focus is LGBTQ youth here in Atlanta who have been displaced because their parents are not open to their sexuality, and they have the donations that go to that thrift store help them get back on their feet, like apartments and everything like that. And they get a voucher when they first come in, so they're able to go to the thrift store and get clothing for their interview for their jobs. And so they help them with jobs. And I was like, gosh, this is a place. And so I was able to donate not only the mask, but a lot of clothes from my former collections. And so doing these couture face coverings is allowing me to travel around here in Atlanta and just give them to the homeless. And we partnered with Antonio and Brown at Antioch Baptist Church, and we fed 200 families and we gave them all masks. And the homeless people that get masks now, and if you know, in Atlanta, they felt so great because now they can, because people, even when they were homeless before the coronavirus, it was even more scary for people to give them money like on the side of the road because they didn't have on a mask. So just giving them one of these masks, they were so emotional, they were crying. They were like, now, you know, people see us and we feel seen. So thank everybody for doing what you're doing, so allowing us to do what we do.
All right, and speaking of the mask,
yes.
Okay, now we're going to get into a quick bit of trivia, and we're going to be donating one of these masks. We're actually giving it away to one of you guys in the chat.
Yes.
So if you guys can answer one of these two questions.
It was good.
About what we just talked about, you guys, whoever answers first is going to get the mask. The first question is, who officiated Octavius's wedding?
Oh, that's good.
At the Grammys.
That's good.
He has said it, and he has said the name multiple times throughout, okay? Who officiated that wedding? If you can answer that question, you're going to get a mask. Now, the next question is, you got two opportunities to get it, but it's only one mask.
Oh, somebody said, okay.
Boom, somebody got it.
Somebody got it first.
Who got it? Who got it?
Easy, 1, 2, 3.
He got the mask.
Huh?
Easy, 1, 2, 3 got the mask.
Yeah.
Y'all should have been a little bit faster. It is Queen Latifah. Real quick, Easy, we will work with you offline.
What's up, Easy?
Yes. We will work with you offline to get this mask.
What's up, Derek?
Real quick,
how
do you think this what we're going through right now will change the landscape of the fashion industry? Do you see us still being able to have fashion shows and fashion week? What do you see in the next year? You
know what? I think it's, you know, for all the independent designers, especially like designers of color, students, I think this is the best time for the opportunities for students and people who have never been seen to be seen, because I mean, you think about it, J. Crew just went bankrupt. They have all these bigger stores that have these brick and mortars that are closing down. I think that the landscape now, it will provide opportunities that we as independent designers, African-American designers, you know, designers of every ethnic background, to actually become relevant in a world that had only been seen by the elite, right? And I think that is important to, and I'm learning a lot too, because the e-commerce thing, like we have a platform, and I'm trying to think in a business mind, but I think that even once we're out of here, there's still going to be a piece of this that will be, you know, online, like what we're doing now. And it's like, it's the future of everything, you know? So I think that, you know, there are some negative aspects about the pandemic, but the pandemic for me is teaching me and showing me that there's other opportunities that I'll be able to use, and, you know, get rid of all my insecurities about what this is. Because like I said, I'm not, as a fashion designer, I'm very tactile. I like to touch what I'm getting or whatever. But I will say there is a little bit of excitement about ordering something now and getting it and saying, "Oh, I'm surprised by that." You know, so I hope we have a little bit of both, but I think there's opportunity because of the pandemic that we didn't have. So that's a positive that's going to come out of it, the fashion industry.
Okay. Well, y'all heard it here first. Octavius, I want to say thank you so much for spending some time with us
Absolutely.
today and talking with us. Like at the end of these conversations, I'm always, I don't even know why at this point, but I'm always amazed by how much I get out of this personally and how much I can see the visitors who are in the chat are getting out of it as well. So thank you for being open with us. And I also want to tell you, come back at any point in time. We want to support you and uplift you as much as we possibly can. You guys make sure you go out there and you get a mask, okay? We want to make sure that we stay safe and get covered, and he's helping us do that, all
Yes.
right? Got all these great designs out there, so pick you up one of them, okay, and start wearing them things outside, because
Yeah.
we gotta stay safe, y'all.
Well, I want to thank you for providing a platform like this, Day in the District, for giving me the opportunity to do that. And whatever I can do, I'm here.
All right, well, we got you. So when you want to come back, you just let us know, and we'll pick it right back up and talk some more
All
fashion.
righty.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week.